king in my life.
I've got well, uh, now no longer here, but a Southwest pilot friend that whenever he'd say, "Ooh, it's the wrong button," it's things you'd never want to hear a pilot say.
Terry and I just bought our first house. It was on a slab, which is
Hey,
a little bit unusual
congrats.
in
Oh, you
Atlanta.
mean in the past you did?
Yeah, our very first house. This isn't our first house. And in the sink in the kitchen, there was a water filter, but it was behind the disposal. So we had no idea it was there. And this is back when I wore, oh, hey, thanks, Mark. This is back when I wore a coat and tie to work every day. This is 1998.
Yeah.
And I'm literally, I had my shoes downstairs, and I'm literally walking down the stairs, and then my foot hits the main level and splash. It was a
Oh
full inch of
man.
water on the entire lower floor because the
Because
filter
it
got clogged.
it like cracked open or something.
It cracked it right open.
Oh man.
And it probably happened right after we went to bed.
Yeah.
Enough time for it to.
Wow.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and the restoration company came in and said, "Listen, your lives are going to be disrupted. We're just going to tell you like it is. We're going to make it as easy as possible,
Yeah.
but this is going to suck."
Yeah.
That's basically what they were telling me.
Yeah. Hey, Captain Todd, nice to see you there.
Hey,
We missed you. We knew you had plans.
just watched your
right
video
yeah.
going over to Charleston.
Yeah.
And you stopped at a couple of airports in Georgia. I never got the phone call. My feelings were completely hurt, and that's all right.
There's nowhere in Georgia that's more than an hour away in the Beast, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I did my night stuff for commercial. I went to the airport. He went to McDuffie County, just outside of Augusta.
McDuffie. Yeah.
But
well, I am. I watch the videos in order, in date order, and kind of catch up in that way. And I am right now in the middle of Sun and Fun, so it kind of tells you where I am. I'm about 2.5 weeks behind, 3 weeks behind on my video watching. Having a life is really getting in the way of my aviation YouTube.
I tend to go more to the subscribers. I like the content. I'll skip around, and then when that evaporates, then I'll start working back to some of the other ones.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll look at it like, Jimmy's World is a good one just to put in the background, and then when you hear something, you can focus on it. But the last two are like an hour and a half, and I'm like, when I see hour and a half on there, I'm like, I don't want to invest that right now.
Yeah.
Do it.
What is this? Half of an APG? Yeah.
I know. I just don't have the
Hey,
patience.
AJ. Cheryl, nice to see you there.
Yes. Alpha Juliet. And for the record, Ben, I also didn't stop in North Carolina because of the weather on that flight. Okay. Well, that really makes me feel a lot better that if you didn't even go see your dad and not reach out to him, I'm okay with not being called. So, and James Terry, good to see you in the chat.
You're only slightly hurt, basically.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Alyssa's been through Hartsfield like 3 times, and I told her, I'm like, okay, if you just don't like me, just say so.
Probably ATL itself, right? Alyssa loves going into the big Bravos. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a commitment too, to go down there to go hang out with somebody. But I would do that for her, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you just did that with a couple of our Patreon people.
I sure did.
Yeah. You did that.
Cool. Well, it's pretty darn going close to 8. What do you say we kick
just
off?
let me click on a button or two first.
Okay.
I just want to check something. Okay. Oh, okay. Just I can only have so many distractions at the same time,
It's all good.
So, yeah. Yeah. All right. Nathan Ballard's here, so we can get started.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We are glad you're with us. What is it like to become a pilot in your 40s and 50s? The challenges are unique for those of us in midlife, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences of being a midlife pilot. Join the Midlife Pilot community and listen in every week. We are not CFIs or particularly intelligent, so if you want to learn how to fly, talk to anyone else other than the hosts of a podcast. Even this intro was too challenging for us, and we used a robot to do it. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello, and welcome to episode 74 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we talk all things flying and aviation in midlife, whatever that may mean to you. My name is Ben. I am a pilot with an instrument and commercial rating, living here in Atlanta, flying a Cessna 182. Every time I say that, I want to say Cessna 182 slant golf because I feel like I'm on frequency. We call it the Beast. Tonight, we do not have our friend Brian, a private pilot living in Nashville, home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie. He flies a Cherokee 180 named Lucy, but we do have my friend Ted, a sport pilot in Portlandia, flying a flight design CTLS we call the Egg. What's up, Ted?
The Egg. Hey, I'm doing well. So, a lot of our followers also follow Mike Patey, who is building this, 24-foot pool in, this massive thing in Utah. That's basically what Brian's doing tonight. He's doing a miniature version of building a pool. He just decided to, turn on all the water in his house and see if he could fill it up with water. So.
Yeah, he's not doing all that crazy engineering stuff. He's just doing a full send, just crack the pipes and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Brian has some things he has to deal with, so he will be missed tonight, but he insisted that the show must go on. So we decided to go ahead and plow through it. And what have you been up to? You haven't been able to fly very much lately.
Man. No, I knew that at the end of the month of April that we had the Nashville fly-in and also that my annual was due. So I kind of planned on having a period of not flying through here. My annual got a little weird, and then I got a really bad cold coming back from Nashville, so I wouldn't be able to fly anyway. So
you're an annual.
It was great timing to, yeah, exactly. I'm an annual as well. Great timing to not be able to fly,
Right.
because both me and the plane are down. So, but should be getting back tomorrow. How about you? What have you been up to?
I've done a little bit of flying. Had to go to Savannah, and we'll kind of get into that with our topic. But I do have my first tailwheel lesson scheduled for next Monday.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm going back into student mode. I spoke with the owner just to kind of double check on everything, and I'm going to be training in a bushcat. So I'm trying to read up on that as much as I can, just to kind of try to figure out, kind of come prepared, I guess would be the best way to say that. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Work's been kind of a grind lately, and I need something to kind of reset the brain, start learning something new again. So I'm pretty pumped. And then I've got a couple of flights in the next couple of weeks. For those of you that have this on your bingo board, I am going back to Apalachicola.
Well, we've got two slots. We've got tailwheel and Apalachicola.
There we go. Yeah. Just need 3 more, and somehow I have a bingo.
Yeah.
And I think I told you this. I am going to be out in your neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm hoping either we do a Monday night pod or we might have to it might be you and Brian next week. So we'll have to, we'll get with that. We don't need to bore everybody with those details, but
oh yeah,
let's go ahead and go over a few housekeeping things as we do every episode. We broadcast live on YouTube, usually every Tuesday night around 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got an active chat room tonight. We leave that open for questions and comments, and a lot of times they're talking amongst themselves, which we love. audio podcast is at iTunes, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. So please give us a subscribe or a follow. And we're still looking for some reviews, a 5-star review, actually. So please take a few minutes and say something nice about Ted and Brian. That'd be a lot easier than saying something nice about me, I'm sure. Feedbacks and suggestions could be sent to us via email or voicemails on our website. The email is midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. And our website is the same, midlifepilotpodcast.com. There you can also find links to contact. You can, our Patreon is there, and Patreon is how you get access to our amazing Discord server. Just absolutely love getting on that every day. I've almost replaced my entire social media on my phone and just look at the Discord server. All of these links can be found at midlifepilotpodcast.com. So we did, you want to talk about our new Patreon member?
Yeah. So as y'all know, we've got a Patreon, patreon.com/midlifepilotpodcast. It's linked on the website. You can get access to Discord from the Patreon. It's buried deep in there. Just drop us a line if you can't figure out how. And we have a new supporter this week, and that is Matthew S. at the Hershey bar level. So
Thank you very much, Matthew.
And I just put up a post on Patreon for our supporters. It's 20 something photos from Nashville. So, kind of curated the stuff that we had from everyone and tried to pick some decent ones and then do a quick edit on all of them and put them up. So, yeah.
This looks like it could be a good show title, but not really apropos to what we're going to be talking about. I love that Cheryl Bushcat Ben and the Grass Strip Guru. That sounds very show title-y.
Yes.
So we kind of got together before and a couple of experiences as of recent. We thought maybe tonight we would talk about external pressures. And that can come in a variety of forms. There's get-theritis, but there's also other forms. And we just thought maybe Ted and I could share our experiences, and we encourage those in the chat tonight. Or if you want to send us feedback, and we'll read it on next week's episode and maybe revisit this with Brian being able to join us. But, we hear through training, there's the I'm safe checklist, and S is for stress. And then also the PAVE checklist, where E is for external pressures. And we get examples of that from time to time. Or when you're going through training, if you have a death of a loved one, or, other things that affect pressure that's on you, and feel free to jump in, Ted, different things, time pressures, or making sure that you have to complete a mission. But I had an experience last week that I felt like I handled it well, and it further defined how I deal with external pressures. We had a family member that had to be checked into the hospital, and I had a business trip to Savannah that I was planning on flying to. This member of the family checked in on Wednesday, and I had that trip that I needed to leave by Thursday afternoon, but the person did not, we didn't know what was going on. And that's when my stress level was at highest. Like, this could be a lot of different things.
Yeah. There's a lot of distractions there.
Yeah. Well, if I go on this business trip, if I even go, I'll drive. I won't fly. And, I was fine with that. 4.5 hours, 5 hours in the car is not ideal, but I wasn't going to put myself at risk at having my mind elsewhere except for where it needed to be, which was in the airplane. Well, after later Wednesday evening, early Thursday morning, we learned what the cause of this issue was. and that no surgery was going to be needed. And, there was a plan of action to get this person healthier and get them home. And it was at that point in time, and other family members were able to jump in and be with this person and, making sure that they were taken care of. And it was at that point in time, I was like, okay, now I do feel comfortable in flying. The worst distraction was behind me. And the second thing of it is that I also wanted to get back as quickly as possible on Friday to be able to maybe see this person home, be the
Right.
one to take them home. So it's just an example that I had never worked through in my mind as to an external pressure or a stress, as it is in the I'm safe checklist. A stress that I was facing that I wasn't comfortable flying, and then things fell into place and kind of allowed me to be able to fly. So
Yeah.
that was something that happened just in the last week. Did you had a situation, I think?
Well, uh, Brian's point is that we should never have a reason that we need to fly with external pressures because we're just midlife pilots, right? We're not doing this for a career, and it is always kind of a good point, right? We never need to fly, um, but there are. I think that's such a great reason of look. This is going to save 6 hours of driving time, and that's that much more time that I can be at the hospital or be at home and not be in a car.
Right.
And I think that's that's one of the benefits that we have is having life experience and knowing what we can handle and what we can't, and hopefully having a little bit of that self-awareness of
Right.
who okay, I'm stressed. Is this a problem? Or this is going on in my life. Is this a problem? And I had some of that in training, of kind of life stresses that I had to think about whether I was gonna fly or not. And but for me, some of it is it's not whether you have stress or not, right? It's what level you have. I
Right.
remember the uh, AOPA personal minimums thing, and it's like, how well rested are you? And it's like, well, I'm never going to be a 10. I mean, like that's just life.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you're out flying on 2 hours of sleep either.
Right.
So, um, so for me, that's kind of part of it. The uh, the one example for me that was really vivid in training, and in your primary training, it's such a great time to use your CFI's abilities and their minimums and not yours. And I was at the airport, and it was just mediocre weather. It was something that we don't get, which is it was raining and the clouds were high enough that it was flyable VFR, but it was like 3 mile visibility. And he's like, "Well, let's go." And we went, and as soon as I got in the air, I'm like, "Nope, this is no." And brought it. We're just gonna do pattern work, and brought it around and landed it. I'm like, "I'm done." And man, I would not have liked being alone in the plane with that. You
Right.
know, and certainly I had more of those kind of freak out moments as a student pilot than I've had since, right? And but that's one of those where uh, regret, pressure. I'm just going to go ahead and fly anyway. This is legal, right? That doesn't mean you should or that you're going to like it. And I'm really glad that I took advantage of that opportunity because
Yeah.
it really taught me afterward.
Sometimes we learn more by not doing things or experiencing those type of things than we did
Yeah.
if it never would have happened. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's also, to me, it's a layered approach as well, and with regards to external pressures. I don't know of anybody that doesn't have some type of stress, minor as it may be, at any point in time. If you have a family, if you have a dog, if you have anything, going on in your life, there's going to be, if you work, nobody's stress free, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I kind of look at it as a layered approach, where I want to say I kind of lean towards the 3-strike rule, and I'll give you an example. Next month, Terry and I are going on an exciting trip, where some friends are chartering a sailboat out of the Bahamas, and I've wanted to fly the Beast to the Bahamas
Mhm.
maybe since I got my instrument rating. And it's single engine. I've heard everybody, oh, I don't know if I'd do that if it was a single engine, but the fact of the matter is, from Fort Pierce, Florida to the first spot of land is 70 or 80 miles, maybe 90 miles. It's really not, I can climb up to 9,000 feet and almost glide the whole way.
Right.
Not really, but
Yeah.
you get my point. So, this was rolling around in my mind, and tickets over there are not, airline tickets over there are not cheap.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that when I discussed this with Terry is she wasn't comfortable with it. She said that's a lot of time to be over water, and I get that. I do. The second thing is the engine. We're 400 hours away from recommended overhaul.
Mhm.
So it's getting a little later in its life. So that's number 2. And I think the thing that caused me to decide not to do this flight was we're meeting our friends on Saturday, or at the boat Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And we're hoping to cast off at like noon once we get all moved in.
Yeah.
Well, if there's bad weather, I'm going to be making decisions that I don't want to make.
Yeah.
Either delaying everybody or meeting them somewhere else or taking a flight I really don't want to take. And so when you add up all those, each one of them is not good, but when you put all 3 of them together, that's what what I meant by layering, that it's, I told Terry, I was like, you're right. There's just too many things stacking on top of each other, that are beyond our control. Weather, don't know what's going to happen with the engine. And we decided to go commercial.
Yeah.
And I still think it's the right call. I also think that there'll be a point in time when I can go down there by myself, maybe after an overhaul, or maybe we get another compression check in, that the next annual and everything's still looking strong. I might be
Yeah.
perfectly willing to do that. And,
Yeah.
I might have a day at that point in time. I have a buffer between 2, I needed 2 days to get there. At some point in time, the weather be fine down there.
Yeah. Well, Wendell Geek said he wants to do it too. And if you're looking to do a test flight, he'll go with you. So there you go. You don't have to go alone.
Maybe I'll do that. And I like Tipper Hare's comment too. This is similar to the Swiss cheese model. And that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid, is having, there's 3 layers. I don't want all 3 of those holes to line up at the same time. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
And Nathan Ballard rolls in and said he's flown it in a 172. So
right.
That's
so it's the fact that it's doable, but I need to have the right comfort level. And
sure.
Having another pilot on board like Wendell Geek, maybe be careful what you ask for. So you might just end up joining me.
Exactly.
But those are the 2 things that I have that come to mind more recently.
Well, and thinking about that, I mean, that's such a great example, because each of the things that goes into that trip gets worse as it gets closer to the date. And if you're making that decision an hour before flying, it's going to be, it is really tough. Logistically, how are you going to not fly at that point? Doing it the evening before is a little bit easier. Doing it the week before is easier than that. And this far out, it's easier to make that kind of plan. And not everything's like that, right?
No.
Some things, it's like you get closer and you're like, well, it's the penalty is probably that's the difference, is the penalty is.
I got to be
isn't as
honest
high.
with you. Really, the thing that pushed me over the edge is I can start drinking pretty much as soon as I get to Hartsfield International Airport, and I can start drinking from that point all the way till I get home. So,
Yeah.
I think that may be the reason. So I don't know. It's just when we're talking about some show topic ideas, I'd been thinking about this for a while. There was
Yeah.
something else I think you mentioned earlier. Um, oh, never mind. That was something different.
All right.
Your
Well,
lawn tour. I did want to hear about
yeah.
that before
Yeah,
we let things go.
we'll definitely talk about that. But yeah, I think that even some of the little habits that we do can keep that pressure from building as badly. You can use the Swiss cheese model to kind of stack the risks, but that also ends up being, for me, I kind of see that as like, oh, everything happens in threes, and then pretty soon you're looking for the third thing that it was, or you're kind of justifying to count to a magic number. But even the little things like telling a passenger, "Hey, we may not fly. The weather's not great. We may get to the airport. We may go home." Or the hey, we may go around. Like all those little things you just kind of built in and hedge. And you can also do that with yourself. What I did a lot during training, and I still have this habit of doing it, but it's fully pre-flight the plane before I take it out of the hangar, so
Right.
that um, I'm not. It's not already out of the hangar, and then I'm trying to justify marginal weather. Just do that. I'll do a final weather check, and then I can always cancel, and it's not a big deal. I haven't taken the plane out.
That's a
And
great comment. And then to add to what Nathan Ballard saying, he commented in the chat, excuse me. This is a great topic. It doesn't matter who you are, flying loved ones is always a stressor. And I couldn't agree with that more. If I offer to take a friend for a flight and the weather's iffy, I've got no problem canceling that. We can always
yeah,
find to do it another time. But when we have plans to go to St. Simon's or go to the beach somewhere else, and it's Terry and I and one of the kids, I agree with Nathan here. I feel a little bit extra pressure to complete that mission.
yeah,
Aside from the fact that I have my loved ones on the plane and that, God forbid, if something were to happen, that, this is who I'm, it would be bad with anybody in the plane, but
yeah.
it would be worse if it was a loved one. So I think that's a great comment. It's, your audience, when they're related, it can add another layer of stress.
And that is the other half of this, and this is why we started talking about um, other pressure when we were kind of kicking around this topic, and coming up with the phrase under pressure, is that pressure of passengers can be big. And we talked about this recently with flying kids, and that obviously has its own complications, and flying family has its own complications, and flying with a new CFI has its own, and flying with a different pilot, flying with a non-pilot, right? Like they're all their own category of anxiety producers, pressure producers. And it's it surprises me even after the fact. Sometimes I realize, oh, I should have thought this through a little bit more.
One Dull Geek commented, I've got that coming up at the end of May. My wife and a couple we know are planning on going to Jekyll Island, and I've been preparing them that there is weather that will change plan. And I think that's the absolute right way to go. And if you've
Yeah.
not been to Jekyll Island, that is one of my favorite destinations in Georgia. So it's a really cool place. But no,
That's
you got to set the right level of expectations with whoever you're
yeah.
flying with. My family knows I've canceled numerous flights because of weather.
Yeah.
And to that point, the other point I was going to make, I've mentioned this before. I fly a fair number of angel flight missions. And I think there was one last November that I called off because I wasn't comfortable with the weather. And the response I got from the coordinator was, that's the right call. I think that's the smart thing. We can reschedule.
Oh man.
They were nothing but supportive. The patient was totally get it. I'll call my
Yeah.
doctor. We'll get this rescheduled. There's never been any pressure from that side of it. That if it doesn't look good, then absolutely don't fly. We have the
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah. And that definitely helps. Uh, and that is theoretically a pressure we don't have is, that external commercial pressure of, I'm flying, uh, I'm young CFI Sam and I'm flying, a jet full of people, right? We don't have that pressure, but we have all the others that
Yep.
are similar. The angel flight pressure
Right.
of this is somebody important. This is a scheduled thing that's important, or the family to go, or the friends, couples going to Jekyll Island. Like all those they're all they're all kind of versions of the same thing,
Yeah.
and
My
and
brother-in-law, who I've said many times, used to fly or just retired from Delta. He retired over a year ago, but he said his first officers would always ask him, "What's the weather like?" And he would respond, "It doesn't matter. We're going."
yeah,
And but that know that going into it, you sign up for it, and they have their outs. They have their ability to avoid a lot of things or
right,
deal with whatever scenario. So yeah, it's a real thing. It comes in a variety of different forms. The other thing I was thinking of for our younger audience, I mean, college kids that are going to school to learn to fly professionally, they have classes, they failed a test or something. They could struggle, they could be distracted under a lot of stress that, if they don't pass this next exam, they could fail out or whatever the case may be.
yeah,
And so I don't think it matters what age you are. I think it
yeah.
applies to all of us, young and old. Um, it's something that we definitely need to be keeping in mind.
I agree, and I think that some of the things that we're talking about, like the angel flights, and flying to Jekyll Island and flying to the Bahamas, are also versions of the same thing that we dealt with in training, right? It's no different than that, because in training there's schedule pressure about the plane or the planes, and are they in annual? Are they available? Is your CFI available? Oh, great. I've canceled 3 flights in a row because the weather's bad and I'm going to be gone next week. And so it's going to be 2 weeks between flights. And so you get those same types of pressures.
Hmm.
And it everything to me kind of builds on that of it, it it's all the same thing. It's no different. And learning how to deal with that in training, I think, was really good for me, because I wouldn't have understood that. I guess it's good that I train in the winter, probably. Um, our our Patreon and Nashville Fly-In supporter, Michael Gillette, said, "My standard operating practices help a lot. Less cognitive load at decision time. Quote, look, the book says we don't go, we don't go. It's not me, it's written here." That's kind of the way that the airlines do it, right? They,
It is, but and being able to write your own book. This is my standard operating procedure, and this is how it's written. It's right back to your personal minimums.
yeah,
It The whole point, and what I really like about his comment is less cognitive load at decision time. That load is the pressure,
yes,
and it's always safer to not fly. To be honest with you,
yeah.
it's
And also, if you can cancel or reschedule at a time that has less penalty to you, that makes it easier. It's it's a lot easier to say the weather next week is going to be marginal, so let's not plan the trip, than it is to
right.
be at the airport fully packed with you and the other couple sitting there thinking, man, I'm just not sure. That makes it a lot tougher.
It does. Biff in our chat, Patreon member and also Nashville Fly-In attendee, uh, has commented, "Pilots and Pause and Angel Flight are looking for you to be a pilot." and that means more than flying them from A to B. It means your decision making, which is the most important part of being a pilot. And prior to flying Angel Flight, I did. My son Evan and I flew quite a few um, pilot and pause flights. Every time we've had to cancel, nobody's complained because they
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Especially if they've coordinated a few pilots and pause, and the Angel Flight patients and coordinators absolutely get it. That's the
That's
last thing they want is for you to put people in a worse situation than not. So
I bet the people that deal with safety in the Angel Flight regions really they'd be interesting people to talk to, because they've had to think through a lot of that, and makes me wonder about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anything else that you wanted to bring up on this?
Yeah, well, our friend Daniel G said he liked with the Nashville fly-in that we had a backup plan and there was no pressure for the pilots. We definitely stressed a lot on Friday about what the weather. I mean, we stressed for a while leading up to it, but
Yeah, I
by
was going to
Friday
say more
night,
than a day.
the big stress was how bad is the weather going to be Saturday, and it's why Wendell Geek put his plane over at B&A was so
Yep.
he had solid tie downs, and so we looked at the weather and we went out in the parking lot and we discussed that. Some people probably saw that during the event there at Cezanne, but we went out there and talked through it and what the risks were and everything else before we kind of endorsed it, because the winds were going to be reasonable and they weren't going to be hard crosswinds or anything else. But
No, and we had
yeah,
set a group personal minimum that if it was more than a 12 knot crosswind component, then it was an automatic no go.
yeah,
If
yeah,
it was getting up to that or close to it, then we're going to say, if you're not comfortable, this is what you're looking at. And, you know, do your thing. Don't feel like you have to go. Here's some things you can do if you choose not to. So I do like how we handled that.
yeah,
I thought it was well done, and I appreciate them calling that out.
yeah. I think that was a good example of what we're talking about, and it's one of the things that we've discussed to intentionally be to have a little bit of a safety focus as midlifers, and you know, uh, always pushing Killing Zone, the book, and
Right.
uh, these because these are things that we believe and that we want to follow, and it's that much more important when you've got more than one plane in the same place. That's that could be risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you share Chrissy's comment with us?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Chris C. Well, when working on proficiency, there was a balance I had to find between not pressuring myself, but also pushing myself to grow. It took a while, and some CFI helped to overcome that. I totally get that.
Yeah, I wanted to call that out. I actually have 3 videos on my YouTube channel, and one of them
Hmm.
actually talks about this, more about expanding your personal minimums, but the pressure that comes with that. Um, always having an out is the underlying theme of that video. But I think that's another great point and another layer of stress that you can place upon yourself. There is a point in time when you do need to stretch your wings out a little bit further, try something new that you may be uncomfortable with, as long as you have plenty of you've got plan B, C, D, and E, plenty of
Yeah.
outs, in other words. But
Yeah.
that's a great comment from Chris
And there's
about
something great about having
something.
a CFI that you trust sitting next to you, who you can really lean on and have as that insurance policy. And it's yeah. Uh,
Definitely.
Wendy, yeah, Wendy said Wendy's in IFR training right now. She said, Chris, that's where I'm at right now. I don't want to cancel just because I'm just uncomfortable or doubting my confidence. And shout out to Wendy. She had quite the IFR flight this week in solid IFR weather in the Northwest. And
It was a little bit beyond IFR
yeah,
from what you were describing earlier.
yeah. Let me dig that out. Surprise, icing at 5,000 and embedded convective cells. There was a lot of vectoring going on to get around big rain, so we avoided the worst of it. My head caught fire pretty much the minute we hit the clouds. So my CFI, her CFI, who was also mine, man comms and some buttonology. Flying in the clouds that day was a straight up roller coaster ride. I was exhausted but exhilarated and glad we did it. Yeah,
Right. Having that CFI with you makes all the difference from a confidence standpoint. And whatever you need to do to build that confidence, absolutely go out there and do it. It will be the best money you spend on a CFI ever.
yeah.
That's pretty crazy stuff, though. That's a lot to chew on. My head would have been on fire probably the moment the wheels left the ground, and not when we hit the IMC. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and also shout out to Alyssa, who passed her. Did she pass her instrument check ride this week?
It was last week, I think.
Last
but
week.
I don't know if we properly applauded her for that.
I don't think we did, and if not, we'll do it again. Yeah, I didn't think we talked about that, so I wanted to
Maybe
make
not.
sure, yeah.
She has shown a significant amount of patience of anybody I've seen what she's had to go through to get that. So massive congratulations to her. And I see her pop up on the Creeper bot on the Discord server, which you can access through getting a Patreon subscription.
Yep.
But it's now all filed, and it's pretty much set my watch. If it's 7:00 Eastern, she's probably up in the air.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's awesome. She had to endure a lot, so that was really cool.
There's been a real discussion in there about how Alyssa did her instrument rating the right way, which was getting a lot of under the hood time. It happened to be with the CFI, but I don't know what it had to be. You might be able to tell me on that.
To fly to practice instrument approaches, you just need a safety pilot.
Right.
Now you can't log the hours and you can't log the approach, but there's no reason. Yes, she was with the CFI candidate at the time that when she was building it, and now that person is, I think, since passed her CFI check.
I think so too. Yeah.
But just flying the needles.
Yeah.
That's it's a great way to a great primer for starting instrument rating.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do want to hear about this. This I got for the group. I got a picture from Ted from via text, and it showed the egg, and the egg had a bunch of green stains on the front wheel pan, which made me smile. I loved seeing that. That is, and it's something you have inspired me, Mr. Fly Sport. I would love to just start going to do a lawn tour, as you like to call it.
Oh man,
there's one super famous strip here in South or Middle Georgia, Barnstormers, Peach State Aerodrome. But I would love to go find probably 3 or 4 more strips to go, at least just do a touch and go and start maybe ranking how well they're graded and which ones start grading them like you would a restaurant. Who's got the best grass strip around?
Totally. Yeah, I just put up a video. It's about 3.5 weeks ago that I did the flight, but
yeah,
it was a day that I happened to be near the airport, and I actually went there for a tenant meeting, and like, well, I'm here and the weather's really good, so great. Every time I go in the winter, the weather's been terrible, and let me take advantage of it since I'm there. So yeah, I did all the planning, and I went. There's 7 public grass fields in the greater Portland, Charlie area. And I hit all of them. I knew I'd been to 2 of them in the past, I think. And I knew where a couple of the others were. And a couple of them I had to find by air. And grass fields are really hard to find from air. Sometimes you're over the top of them before you can find them. And I just had a great time. It was a little windy, just kind of little weird winds, but it was in the right, it's within what I could do. And so yeah, I went out and I landed all these fields, and man, I just loved it. It's a great time of year in the Northwest for that because uh, the ground is solid enough. It's not winter swamp, and the grass is growing and it's still soft. Uh, when you land in, you know, by September, when you go land and everything's just hard, it feels like
Right.
cobblestones. But this time of year, it's super plush, and so it makes all your landings just feel great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
It doesn't matter if you have gas shocks or spring leaf
yeah,
struts. They all feel good. And so for the moment, you were flying the green egg,
yeah, the green egg. Yeah,
not the big
Y-
green egg, but just the
no,
green egg.
just the tiny green egg.
That's
So
exactly right.
anyway, that led as I was editing down the video, and you know, editing video is a great chance to kind of learn more and more things than you remember that happened at the time. And so finding mistakes and finding weird things that were in there. And one of those things happened to be a great bag of words. So our favorite segment, the uh, Josh McElhatton Memorial Bag of Words segment. So let's play that here.
Let's listen to it.
503 Tango is overflying the field southbound, following somebody in the pattern, left downwind, 25, 5.
Yeah. It's like every other word is
And you said I've done this. We've played it. I've made my call sound like 12 times in one call.
yeah. Yeah. So what happened was I'm underneath the outer ring of a Charlie, going into a grass field. There's a plane that flew past and turned where the downwind would be for this grass runway. Well, they just happened to be turning to avoid the inner ring of the Charlie, but they are Nordo with no ADSB. And I've seen them before I make this call, but I realize I'm close and landing on a grass runway, there's nowhere to get off. You're you're gonna need to be in the air for quite a while. So I'm trying to decide how I'm gonna space this timing out and everything else. And I'm trying to make this call, and I hadn't thought through how I'm gonna make a call about who this other traffic is that I'm following, because I'm so used to them being on the radio
Right.
and all of that.
Was the
So
plane like really old and just didn't have radios, you think, or do you just think they were Nordo?
I just think,
Could
well,
could you see it?
they didn't have ADSB, so it's even weirder. But it seemed like about a 172.
I was gonna say,
Um,
I was wondering if it was like an old Cub or something
yeah,
really, a Stinson or something.
no. And the funny thing is, I was talking to a Cub pilot through that whole thing, who was at nearby fields. So it's hilarious that the Cub wasn't Nordo. It's the guy in the 172 that was Nordo. So now what's really interesting is I did all that. I posted the video. Then I went back and I pulled this clip out to make the bag of words from. And because of the way our streaming software works, you can't just play audio. It's got to be a video clip. So I stuck a little piece of a VFR chart on top of that to show where I was. And the thing that our, dozen people that are watching this on YouTube get to see is they get to see that little bit of video. It was only then that I realized I'm turning left downwind 25 behind Nordo traffic, and I'm looking at this screenshot of the sectional that I've got, and it says right there, right pattern. This is 3 weeks after the fact. I I I posted this video a little while ago, and I'm just now realizing right pattern. And so that was today's real moment of kind of search my brain and figure out what happened and why and all of that. So I went and filed an ASRS on that, which it may not be a big deal, but I did post the video. and the video's public on YouTube and all of that. So I'd written down all these fields. I have a habit when I go to new places of writing in my notepad of uh, the airport, the length of the runway, the numbers of the runways, uh, the ATIS, CTAF, tower, things like that onto it. But I just didn't review that before I got to this field. So it's amazing it took that many rounds of reviewing my own flight before I realized that I made that mistake. So anyway,
Wendell
it's a little bit of a self-inflicted wound. Good good reminder for people.
If that was my mistake of the year, I would feel pretty good about myself. Wendell Geek comments, I've been accidentally Nordo by being on the slightly wrong frequency, which I have done while flying over the top of Hartsfield in the Bravo, and I over-rotated, as I like to say. I was just 0.25 off, but it happens to everybody at some point in time. I have to believe that I learned on that flight that if you're in Hartsfield and you're talking to Traycon and it's quiet, then something's wrong, because there's always somebody on frequency.
Yeah.
And Eric Grizzly mentions as well, or with the volume turned down. That's happened to me as well.
Yeah. I did that, and I was out really in the middle of nowhere, and I turned it down because I was tired of hearing fields that were 100 miles away, and I forgot to turn it back up and couldn't figure out where anybody was. So yeah, I get that.
It's
at least I was in the middle of nowhere. You weren't.
Right. Well, I mean, you make those mistakes and you learn. It's never happened since. When I call up air traffic wherever I'm at, and there's a really long pause, I am looking at my volume knob and I am looking at the frequency and double checking that I had it right. And usually by the time I finish that check, they come on frequency. It kind of fills that time as to maybe should I call again? But
right.
Again, it's those things that you almost have to make those mistakes to really learn from them.
Yeah. And getting that feeling of getting the spidey sense of, is something wrong or not? And did I just talk to center on the wrong frequency, or did I talk to center and they just took a bite of something and they'll get back to me in a minute? I get that. And that's I think we're still learning on.
Right. and we still we'll make those mistakes from time to time again, and you'll be reminded once again, these are the things that you check.
Yeah. Well, so before we wrap this up, I get the egg out of annual tomorrow, and it was kind of an adventure of getting it into the annual for a couple of reasons. But I am absolutely baffled with dealing with a new aviation mechanic and how different it is than every other form of service or labor that I'm used to dealing with, where there was a question about some Rotax stuff they were doing early on, and they pulled the gearbox out of the engine and had it in a crate to ship away. And it's only because I called them a couple days later and when it was in the crate that I found that out. And they were following a inspection schedule that was wrong and old. So it was wrong in a couple of ways. And it just baffles me that the aviation mechanic experience it's like from 50 years ago. It's like you're supposed to take the plane in and give them the keys, and the next time you talk to them is when it comes back and you pay however big the bill is. This is something that Mike Bush talks about, but it's like I expected, and I way too casually had told him, give me the invoice, let me know what this is going to be, expecting that was going to be in the middle of the process.
Right.
And it's just so baffling to not get that, right? Like,
right.
Oh, you were going to do all this major work without even dropping me a phone call, without even saying like, hey, we're proposing to do this, and they're also going to fix something that was not airworthy. It just, And that's the wonder of Mike Bush, and or the why I've got love for Mike Bush is uh, being able to make the decisions for your plane, and um, especially uh, even if maintenance says it's a problem, you've got to decide whether it is or not. And for non-airworthiness issues, that's a choice.
That's right. And
I
I was going to
just,
say, advocate for your plane. I
oh
mean, that's,
man,
and we had experience when we had the plane in Cartersville that we used a shop out there because of our mechanic was unable to take us on that year. And this was on the field, and it felt like, okay, this is going to be our one shot with these folks. Let's pack it in, get as much as we can out of them. And yeah,
yeah,
they were good. They did give us a list before all the major work was done. But then they held our plane hostage for a little while, meaning that they would take on other planes while they were
oh
quote
man,
unquote waiting on parts, or but haven't been able to get to it yet because they're doing other things. So it took probably 3 weeks longer than it should have. So if they're trying to compete for my business, they're not doing a very good job.
right,
In the way that they approach it. And it kind of feels like there's no proof of this. I don't know who these people are, but it does feel like sometimes that, hey, he never uses this, so let's milk him for what we can now. And
yeah.
you know
Or maybe that's how they are with all their customers,
maybe
even the ones they
maybe
like. That's either one of those is bad, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Aero Grizzly says, or go experimental and do it yourself.
yeah.
Well, there's been a text chain in the last week, because with the LSAs, there's a 2-week class that you can take and become a mechanic on them. Uh,
Wow,
and yeah, but it involves going to rural Missouri for 2 weeks to get to do it.
that would be fun still.
And yeah, exactly.
That might be an
So
adventure in and of itself.
yeah, well, if I don't have to do it alone, that'd be about half the reason. So, and man, this type of thing is a motivating experience for that,
Yeah,
right? It's just, and I believe with Mosaic that the uh the requirements to become a mechanic on the new LSAs is going to be much more complex than that.
yeah.
So there may be an incentive to do it and get grandfathered into it, which would also be the reason to do it now. But man, I don't know. 2-week vacation in Missouri and working on engines, that may be what I'm doing. So
Listen, if you
yeah.
need somebody to go with you, I might be willing to go learn about LSAs a little bit deeper.
Hey, it's only an hour from Georgia, right? In the East.
Probably a little further than that, but that wouldn't stop me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, why don't we wrap it up?
Yeah.
We appreciate everybody in the chat and all your contributions. It's been very lively and it's great to see. Again, you can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/midlife pilot podcast. And you could also send us a PayPal drop or just contact us at midlifepilotpodcast.com. Not sure what we're going to hit on next week. We've got a few ideas in the hopper, but we'll get that announcement out on the Discord. Anything else, Mr. Fly Sport, for the good of the order?
That's it from this penguin.
That's it for me as well. From this iceberg, there goes that challenge. And anyway, signing off. Episode 73 or 70. Yes, 74.
74.
Episode 74
Yep.
of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.